This is the Adidas X 18.1. It features a speed mesh upper with the middle part of the upper filled in with this very thin elasticated mesh that does include a lacing system because this thin layer of mesh is not enough to properly hold your foot in place. So the lacing system is there for proper lockdown, fit, and responsiveness. And this is the Laceless X 18 Plus. It's laceless because it has a completely different upper construction to that of the X 18.1 with its skeletal weave, and then this reinforced mesh plastic type material for the laceless system itself. So for the indoor variations of the X18, what does Adidas decide to do? Take the upper from the X 18.1 and make it laceless. What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of a pair of indoors that honestly I like a lot more than I was expecting to. And of course, I'm talking about the brand new Adidas X Tango 18 Plus Indoor, also available as a turf variation as well if you were wondering. Now, as you can see, it's laceless, but it features the upper from the X 18.1 FG boot with some modifications, of course. It's laceless, which does not mean that you can buy the X 18.1 FG boots, pull the laces out, and wear them as laceless. You can do that, be my guest, but RIP to your ankles. This is not the exact same construction, at least in regards to what you can see, because internally it does actually have a laceless reinforcement system, so please keep that in mind. We'll go into that in more detail in just a second. Of course, this does also feature a full-length boost midsole, so the underfoot cushioning is actually well above average considering how low profile these are. It's actually a very interesting pair of indoors with a pretty high $180 retail price. We're gonna go over all the details in today's video as far as whether or not these are actually worth it. So if you wanna learn more, please stick around and watch the entire video. And if you are interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That'll take you to the review page on my website where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $180 retail price. If you guys do end up enjoying the video, don't forget to support it with a like. And if you're new here watching for the first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. Included with the boots is this box that has a drawer, but no string bag. But it has a handle, but no string bag. So let's start with the upper, which for the most part looks the same as the X 18.1 FG boots like I mentioned, and like you saw at the start of this video. It's still a speed mesh upper, with the main difference with this particular upper being that they left certain parts of the mesh completely exposed. You can see the midfoot area is fully exposed mesh. You have a fused top layer right here in the forefoot area, and then along the lateral side, it's all left fully exposed as well, with only a little bit of fuse running along the outside edge. Why did they do this? Honestly, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There's no real logic to doing this aside from just making them look a little bit different. I wouldn't say that this benefits the touch on the ball in any way at all. If anything, it makes these areas that are left exposed a little bit more slick on the ball, which you might like, you might dislike more than if the shoe was entirely covered in fuse. Honestly, I think covering the whole shoe in fuse would just make more sense in regards to having more consistent grip on the ball, as well as for the sake of durability. Because this is an indoor shoe, if you were to scrape this on concrete, as an example, it definitely could rough up the mesh. It's a more rugged material than I think you might expect though, and of course it is internally reinforced with a synthetic suede liner as well, so I wouldn't worry about tearing through the material itself. I just think it's kind of a weird decision to do what they did here as far as kind of staggering where it's exposed mesh and where it's covered in fuse, as opposed to just fusing the whole thing like they did on the regular X 18.1. Aside from that difference though, the touch on the ball is pretty much identical. The shoe is thin, but it does have that soft padded sensation to it. There is a padded internal layer within the lining in the forefoot area especially, so it's not a super true barefoot sensation, I would say, but still thinner nonetheless and very natural because of how soft and flexible this material is. Which brings us to what's happening here across the top of the foot. This is of course laceless, unlike the X 18.1, even though this is technically an 18 plus model. Now you're going to find that exact same thin black mesh material that's fully elasticated that honestly has some structure to it, but for the most part stretches very easily. But as a reinforcement material, you can see they actually included an elasticated band, literally just a single band across the top of the midfoot. It actually works more effectively positively than I was expecting it to once I actually saw what they've done here with the design. Is the lockdown phenomenal? The simple answer to that question is no. If you'd make a really hard cut or a quick change of direction, you are definitely going to notice that your foot will slide on the inside of the shoe because it's not truly locked in, because obviously this is elasticated, the elastic band is fully elasticated as well, so more excessive amounts of force is going to cause that to stretch, which means your foot's kind of free floating inside of the shoe. This has kind of been my whole issue with laceless boots in the first place, but as long as you don't mind a shoe that doesn't feel super secure and tight on your feet, you're unlikely to have any issues with this. I found that the lockdown was perfectly fine as far as heel slippage is concerned. I never really had any issues, and honestly this system works well enough. Again, it's $180. It's one of the most expensive indoors you can buy right now. Is the lockdown as good as you can get from other shoes that cost less money? The simple answer is no, but I think for most people who like the whole concept of a laceless boot, you're unlikely to have any issues with it. Moving to the rear of the shoe, you're gonna find what they are calling their claw collar, which is just a fancy name for what is otherwise a pretty standard low-cut shoe with an extension piece at the front that does basically nothing aside from crinkle depending on the shape of your foot ankle area. And then of course this extended piece at the back, which I personally don't care for, but it doesn't seem to get in the way as far as rubbing is concerned. Just make sure that when you're wearing these, because this extends higher up and doesn't really curve away from your leg like previous S-curve models in the X line did, that can actually rub against the back of raw skin and cause blistering long term. So just be aware of that when you're wearing any of these new X boots with this extended heel. Internally, the heel liner is a little bit different. It doesn't have the large bumps. Instead, it's just a little bit thinner padding with that synthetic suede lining and even these little grip dots that they would include on the higher end models as well, that don't seem to be overly effective. But again, as far as heel lockdown is concerned, especially for being laceless boots, I would actually say that these are above average, at least for me, because again, the way that these laceless boots fit, because you can't adjust them, make them tighter or looser, it's really gonna vary from person to person as far as how well your foot will be secured inside of the boots. The insoles are of course fully removable and pretty much identical to what you'll find on the X18.1 FG boots, synthetic suede on top, some perforations throughout, and a single layer of this white foam. Honestly, given the price point and given the fact that they did include a Boost midsole, I think it would have been a perfect opportunity to include a Boost insole as well, but they didn't. These work though. There's just nothing special about them. Which brings us to the midsole, entirely made out of Boost. And honestly, out of all their implementations of Boost material on indoor and turf models, this is, in my opinion, by far the best implementation they've done so far. It's obviously gonna be a little bit thicker towards the heel and then kind of slowly tapers down as you get to the tip of the toe. But as you can see through the little cutouts here in the outsole itself, it is Boost all the way through, and you can definitely feel that when you have these on your feet. You're close to the ground, obviously a little bit higher at the heel, but still fairly low profile with a more significant amount of cushioning than you would otherwise get from a midsole of this particular thickness. So the Boost, while it doesn't feel like a pair of Ultra Boosts on your feet, the underfoot cushioning and overall bounciness that you get from this material definitely feels very, very good. I would say one of the better midsoles on the market right now as far as being both low profile as well as providing really good underfoot cushioning. So I really like with what they've done here, and it's got super good flexibility through the forefoot, giving these a very natural feel, which I think is important given the softness and flexibility of the upper. My only gripe here, and this is something that is concerning if you regularly play street soccer on any kind of more abrasive surface where this outsole is going to wear out more quickly, they did include a reinforcement plastic shank running through the midfoot area. The issue here that you have to keep in mind is that there isn't a lot of extra rubber to the outsole that clears that plastic shank. So once this rubber wears out even just a little bit, that plastic is going to be in direct contact with the ground itself, which means that it could actually be potentially unsafe if that is scraping against the ground, because obviously that's not going to grip like the rubber will. So honestly, if you are picking these up, at least in the indoor variation, I would probably stick to using these on a true indoor surface rather than on concrete, because on concrete the outsole is going to wear out more quickly, and once it wears out even just a little bit, you're going to be in direct contact with plastic, and essentially the shoes are going to be unusable if plastic is constantly scraping against the ground. Speaking of the outsole, obviously this is the indoor variation. There is also a turf version as well. If you are playing on turf or artificial grass, that would obviously be the ideal setup. This is the indoor version though, and for the most part the traction pattern and type of rubber they've used is pretty straightforward. It's got a little bit more texture to it in the heel, heel area, but for the most part, it's left completely smooth. Some dimples running throughout, but the traction as a whole is pretty much on par with most other indoor boots out there right now. I wouldn't say that it's particularly fantastic. If the court you're playing on is really dusty, this is gonna clog up very easily, and you're gonna have to constantly be wiping your feet. But honestly, I find myself doing that with just about any indoor shoe anyways, so I wouldn't say that it's that big of a deal. The traction isn't phenomenal, but it definitely gets the job done, and I would say is on par with 90% of the indoor shoes out there right now. When it comes to weight, I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised by these. In a size 9.5 US, these guys weigh in at 8.9 ounces, which is right around the 9 ounce mark, just under, so it technically falls into the 8 ounce range. And honestly, the feel on feet is that of a relatively lightweight indoor shoe. Indoor shoes are always gonna weigh a little bit more than the firm ground variations. These are about 2 ounces more than the FG variation of the X18.1, if you were wondering. And I have to say, I was expecting these to weigh more based on the fact that it does have a full-length Boost midsole. The underfoot cushioning is great, but obviously Boost is not going to be as light as a more traditional foam would be. But for the sake that this is 8.9 ounces, and you get good underfoot cushioning, and it's low profile, and it has a really good upper with that laceless system, if those are all things that you really want, this is pretty much the only shoe that has that on offer, so I don't think you're gonna have any issues with the weight. Now, of course, since these are laceless, you pretty much just slip them on. So what I like to do is grab this back part with one hand, grab the front part with the other hand, but also kind of stick my thumb into that elasticated strap area and stretch that along with the rest of the top of the foot just to make the opening as big as possible. Kind of turn it sideways, get my foot in the first part, and then make sure I use my thumb to support this back area so I'm not stepping on the heel counter, and then just kind of slide my foot in, and that's pretty much it. Nothing to adjust from there. Once they're on, that's it. On feet, these actually feel really good. Because of the laceless system, the way that these are gonna fit is going to vary a lot from person to person. For me personally, they seem to fit quite well, but again, it's not an overly tight fitting shoe pretty much anywhere on the foot. There's just enough tension through the midfoot area where they added that elastic strap to hold your foot in place. But like I said, upon more intense movements, a quick cut, a change of direction, you're definitely gonna notice some sloppiness and lack of responsiveness in the boot. Your foot will slide around. So if slippage is something that you don't like the feel of in your shoes, or if you get blisters really easily, which can be easier on an indoor surface versus a firm ground pitch just because it is that much more unforgiving, then something like this could potentially be an issue for you if your feet are constantly sliding around. So just like any other laceless boot, my recommendation is if you're ordering these online especially, once they arrive, try them on. If they fit you well, give them a go. If they don't fit you well, exchange them for something else. Because of that lack of adjustability, the fit is only going to get worse. It's not going to improve after wear time. Underfoot cushioning, like I mentioned, because of that boost, is really above average considering how low profile these are. So I really like the way that that feels. And again, the shoes as a whole feel quite good. Are there more responsive, better fitting indoors out there? Absolutely, but these definitely do get a pass as far as high-end indoors go. As far as width is concerned, I would say that these are going to be wide enough for just about anybody. It's not overly restrictive anywhere through the foot. So as long as you don't have super wide feet, I think most people won't have any issues with the width. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing my usual size 9.5 US. My feet are about a 9.25, and the fit and the length is pretty much perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, I really like these. It's not really my style of shoe, the whole laceless thing, but these seem to fit me quite well. I find them comfortable, and they fit me securely enough to where the whole slippage thing is not that big of a deal. Would it be my go-to first pick as far as indoors go? Absolutely not. But if I felt like wearing something that had a thinner upper with a soft, flexible feel and really good underfoot cushioning while still maintaining a low profile sensation on feet, I definitely think that this is one of the better options out there. Like I said earlier, it's kind of a unique package in terms of what it has on offer, but if you like what it has on offer, then this is definitely one of those indoors that I can recommend. Again, just be aware if you are playing on concrete pretty regularly because of that plastic shank and the minimal amount of clearance you have from the fairly thin rubber outsole, durability long-term on that type of surface is definitely something to be concerned about. Anyways, guys, that is it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, you can click the first link down below. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll be able to pick up either the indoor or turf variation below its normal $180 retail price. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. Other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.